Yes, Warren Buffett cheated my feelings. I thought he was in the TSMC boat together along with me. Who knows? In Q3 of 2022, he entered a pretty sizable position into TSMC, around 16 million shares, which constitutes around 1.39% of their portfolio then. This was around a $4 billion stake. And in the recent 13F filings, he exited. He reduced his position by 86%. So let's look into this entire journey and how am I actually evaluating my current TSMC position. And full disclosure, yes, I still hold TSMC in my portfolio. I haven't been adding and we'll talk more about it later. So I think as concerned retail shareholders, we probably just want to know whether Buffett made money or lost money on this TSMC trade. And why do I use this term trade? Because he's not even 1 quarters in and he sold out like 80% of his position. So I don't necessarily think that it's investment per se, because as Warren Buffett likes to quote himself, the best holding period for himself is forever. But evidently, 3 months is too long a time frame. But anyway, if you just look at the timeline of his purchases and when he exited, he first purchased in July to September, which is Q3 of 2022. So from July to September, I think July starts around here. So the lowest, let's look at the upper and lower bound range of the price action of how TSMC was performing. So the lowest was probably around 70, low 70s to mid 70s, and the highest was probably around 91. So he was essentially, I should say, Berkshire Hathaway was essentially accumulating within the $70 to $90 range in Q3. And then when he exited, which is from October to December last year, so October, you essentially start at around here, also around $70, and the highest of November was around $82. So essentially, there is this very, very small window that he might be profitable in his TSMC position, but I think from a probability perspective, he probably sold it out at a loss. And this is actually a pretty huge loss, because if you look at TSMC's price pattern, it actually went up to I think over 100 or near $100. I think the highest was 97, 98. And in this case, because of the $4 billion position, he might actually be up at least $1 billion. But that's it. Right after the 13F filing from Berkshire, which revealed that he sold out the TSMC position, look at how TSMC is trading in the pre-market. It's down 5.68%. I think it's in the similar vein when Buffett first announced, or when Berkshire Hathaway first announced that they started a TSMC position, the stock actually skyrocketed like 3 to 5%. I think for transparency's sake, I'll just share with you my position. So this is my TSMC position. I have around 20 shares. It's not a lot. It's around 1.8k now, and I'm up around 28% because my cost price is relatively low. I've been buying it in tranches. I think I bought it 3 times. The lowest I caught was around 60 something, in the low 60s. So which was why my average price currently sits at 72. So even after this current correction downwards because of this Buffett effect, and let's not forget the Buffett effect works both ways. When Buffett buys into something, the share price automatically goes up, and when Buffett sells out of something, the price probably goes down as well. Because there are many cloners out there in the retail market. But even at $92, I'm probably still sitting at a pretty healthy green. It's not a lot. Like, to be honest, TSMC is like 1 point something percent of my portfolio. I'll share with you what I'm intending to do in the later part of this video. But just a quick plug from my screenshot itself. This is the Weibo account. So if you guys haven't signed up for your Weibo account, they are giving crazy sign-up rewards now. And not only that, they have recently just reduced the barriers to entry. Initially, you needed to deposit 2,700 Singapore dollars. And right now, you just deposit any amount and you can get up to $500 worth of welcome rewards. Minimally, I think, if I'm not wrong, you get $50 worth. So just use the link. It's in the description box down below. Just get your free shares and spin the wheel and follow the requirements and get the free money and maybe put it into TSMC stock. No, I'm just kidding. Please do your own due diligence. But I think to circle back into this idea of whether is it Buffett who bought, was it Ted and Todd who was essentially maneuvering this entire TSMC position, I will lead you to a previous video that I've done much earlier. It's around 2 months ago, 15th of November 2022. So this was when the 13F filing for Q3 of 2022 came out, and I made this video in response of Berkshire buying into TSMC. So I'm just going to show you a short extract of that video itself. So you know what's the first course of action? It's clearly to smash that freaking like button. I'm not asking for anything more. TSMC currently sits at around 1.4% of Berkshire's portfolio. And even though 1% might seem extremely small, it's Buffett we're talking about. So his TSMC position is around $4.1 billion, billion with a B. So I would presume that it's kinda a starter position for him. So if TSMC continues dipping from here, I would guess that he will continue adding. Who knows? And there I was wrong in that assessment. He didn't add, instead he actually kind of sold out of his position just within 1 quarter. So let's continue. Not barring black swan events like China taking over Taiwan, I think it's a rather good investment decision. So many are speculating that this position was started by one of his lieutenants, but I personally doubt so. So it is public knowledge that both Ted and Todd looks after 5% of Berkshire's portfolio, and 5% of 300 billion is around 15 billion each. So with a starting position of 4.1 billion, that's 1/3 of their quota. So it is probably Buffett that made the call himself. Okay, so here I think I would retract back my statement and walk back on this. I personally think that it's Ted and Todd because it's not really Buffett's behavior, or it doesn't really look like Buffett to enter into a position in 1 quarter and in the next quarter he trims it down by such a large extent. So I think one of the main drivers, or one of the main discussion points for Buffett is saying that, oh, look at how he trimmed airline stocks. When he changed his mind, he will immediately sell out of all the airline stocks. So I think just to track back into looking back into where he essentially sold out of his airline positions, you can see here most of it. This was back in Q2 of 2020, and you can see United Airlines, American Airlines, he essentially sold down everything. But if you really look back into understanding how long has he held onto the airlines position, actually he bought in quite early on. He didn't just hold it for 1 or 2 quarters of a bad outlook of the airlines industry. First started the position, I think back in the 2016 to 2017 era, where you see here United Airlines adding around to 1.21%, American Airlines still only 0.1%, and he has been adding for like God knows how long. I think it's at least 2 to 3 years leading out into COVID-19. And then in 2020, I think he changed his perspective and he thought that the entire industry wasn't as lucrative and the margins were pretty much stagnant and not improving at all, which was why he changed his opinions on the entire airlines industry and he sold out of the position. So I think similarly to Munger, for those of you who actually follow the two goats or the two legends of investing, even if they might look wrong in the first place, or maybe if the thesis do experience some sort of change, you don't see those kind of sea changes in like 1 or 2 quarters. But this Q3 buying in and then Q4 selling out doesn't really feel like it's the style of Buffett himself. So I think just to really circle back to why is investing into TSMC even a good idea in the first place. So I'll refer you to this article. This is of course hindsight bias, saying that why Buffett is buying big into TSMC. So this was posted in Jan 2023. It does seem like just within a short span of 1 month, probably the entire thesis is breaking down thus far. So I think scrolling down, this was one of the key aspects of how many retail investors are speculating why Buffett is buying to TSMC. Now, we may be beginning to see why Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway recently acquired a stake in the company. Apple, which Buffett owns a $100 billion plus stake in, relies heavily on TSMC to manufacture its chips. So while Apple gets all the credit for its outstanding iPhones and Macs, it is TSMC's chips that drive the remarkable performance of these devices. Hint, TSMC has pricing power. And I think this is probably one of the many speculations out there in the market today, saying that they do have greater insights into how TSMC is positioned as a business, which also explains why they are interested into acquiring a position in TSMC in the first place. But I think when this entire Q4 earnings came out and then they started reducing an 86% stake, it does second guess this entire thesis. So back to my position. What am I going to do with this TSMC position? Truth be told, I wasn't really very happy because it essentially just started mooning from here. I think it was trading at like 70, probably mid 70s, and then it started mooning to like 90 something. So I haven't finished accumulating, of course. So I do want to continue adding to my TSMC position. You see, I even have cash position here. So I still have 8,000 that I haven't deployed yet. This is actually my side project here. It's a $15,000 challenge. So for those of you who are interested in following on to this journey, remember to subscribe as well. But that said, I think personally, based on my own due diligence of understanding the company, I think TSMC is still a very interesting, a very superior company. It has been executing on all cylinders, but right now it's definitely experiencing a down cycle moving into 2023. So that is why I've been waiting on the sidelines for many of these valuations to continue collapsing. And who knew that 2023 would be such a good year and all stocks was just flying to the moon? So in this case, I honestly have just been sitting on cash and just paying down whatever outstanding margin or leverage or whatever that is out there because of my options assignment. But I think from this perspective, my thesis on TSMC has not changed. And if it does come down to a comfortable enough valuation, I will continue adding. So is Buffett's maneuver of TSMC or is Berkshire Hathaway's maneuver on TSMC affecting me? I think it might be. I think at first thought when I saw that headline, it definitely affected me. I was thinking, hey, what am I missing out? Why is Berkshire selling out of TSMC? So I think this serves as a good foundation and framework to think about your investment. So whenever a super investor, especially someone like Buffett, sells out of the stock, you should revisit all the bullish thesis you have around the company. So go back and restudy. I'll probably take maybe the weekends to look at some data points and to triangulate and see, did I get anything wrong on TSMC? And just a note from Pabra himself, remember that whenever a super investor, especially a value investor, buys into a company, there is probably only one reason. They see value and they want to harvest the value. But on the flip side, there can be 1,001 reasons why somebody sells out of the stock. So that's just my own opinion and how I look at this entire TSMC shenanigans that's going on with Berkshire Hathaway. With that, I'll see you in the next video, but more importantly, I will finally see you on the moon. Goodbye!